is a week 3 Picks with David. Thanks for joining me for another edition right here on Facebook and YouTube. We've got 5 big games to discuss for this weekend, but before we do that, let's take a look and see how we've done so far through 2 weeks of the season. Oh, it's a disappointing 3-3 this last week after such a great 5-2 start. 8-5 through week 2. Let's get to the 1 o'clock Eastern games for week number 3. It's a battle of unbeaten teams as the AFC's Houston Texans at 2-0 face the NFC's 2-0 Minnesota Vikings. Houston is everything we've expected them to be after a great season this last year and a really good offseason. They beat the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football after beating the Indianapolis Colts on the road in Indianapolis in week number 1. They're really starting to come along with their running game and Joe Mixon, who got dinged up a little bit on Sunday Night Football. But C.J. Stroud has such an array of weapons now. Nico Collins is still his number 1 guy, but he's got Stephon Diggs. He's got Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz at tight end. The Houston Texans are loaded offensively. For the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold has really come along this year. In a system he's comfortable with a lot of playmakers around him. Now, Justin Jefferson is a little dinged up with a quad injury, but he's expected to play in the game. They're running the ball effectively with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. They've got some other players on the team. Jordan Addison, though, is still going to be out. So look for Jalen Naylor at wide receiver to get some touches. Expect them to try to run the ball, keep C.J. Stroud and them off the field. I love my Vikings, but I got to be honest, I really think Houston's probably going to win this game. But here's the thing that I'm looking at. Houston played against kind of a weak Chicago team that are still trying to find themselves, and they beat them at home. They played against an Indianapolis team that has not been impressive thus far this year, whereas the Vikings have managed to beat a couple of really good teams the first couple of weeks of the season, especially in week number 2 when they beat the 49ers. Now, I know they've had the Niners number for the last couple of years. I'm tempted to take the Vikings in this game, but I'm going to stick with the Houston Texans to go on the road and beat the Vikings in week number 3. Game number 2, the surprising New Orleans Saints at 2-0 host the 1-1 Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles let one slip away from them here this last week on Monday Night Football. The defense just kind of folded after playing so well for the majority of the game against the Atlanta Falcons. Here they go on the road to play against the Saints, who surprised and blew out the Cowboys last week. You know, under normal circumstances, my heart says I want to go with the New Orleans Saints. It's great to see them play well, at the Superdome. But unfortunately, I just think that the Eagles are going to make a comeback here. I think that they're going to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. They're going to do a lot of things that they need to do offensively. They have the best offensive line that the Saints have faced thus far this season. And while I love the fact they've really opened up the offense and Derek Carr has played well for the Saints, I think the safe bet here is to go with the Eagles to win on the road. The disappointing Baltimore Ravens at 0-2 against a shell-shocked 1-1 Dallas Cowboys in the 3 o'clock Eastern window. Tom Brady comes to town to announce his 3rd Dallas Cowboy game in a row, and the Baltimore Ravens, who have not looked like themselves all year, I know they wanted to run the football with Derrick Henry, really do some wonderful things, adding him to their offense. But Lamar Jackson doesn't look like if he wants to run or if he wants to throw. The Cowboys, who have not lost a game at home in the last 2 years until last week, are going to have a lot to prove here in this game. I know it's an inter squad game, and Lamar Jackson, or I should say an inter, conference game, and Lamar Jackson has huge numbers against NFC opponents. But this one is on the road. It's not in Baltimore, and Dallas kind of got embarrassed last week. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to rebound against the Baltimore Ravens. Sunday night football, it's the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs against the 1-1 Atlanta Falcons. Kansas City has escaped with narrow victories against two of the teams in the AFC that a lot of people expect to make the playoffs and think are elite. But the Chiefs did it both times at home. Here are the up-and-coming Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins. They go on the road here to play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Atlanta stuns Philadelphia last week on Monday Night Football with a quick comeback. They've got Bijan Robinson to run the football. Tyler Algier spells him nicely in the backfield at running back. They've got some really great players that have not been showcased over the last couple of years because they just didn't have a quarterback. Now Drake London is starting to come along. Of course, they've got Kyle Pitts, but he's nicked up and questionable for the game. But Darnell Mooney may be a huge factor in this game. We haven't seen a lot of Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're injured at the running back position. Isaiah Pacheco breaks his fibula last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. We won't see Kareem Hunt yet, but expect a large dose of both Samaje Perine and Carson Steele, the undrafted rookie out of UCLA. I expect they'll use a lot of their speed packages. We'll see a bunch of screens. Kansas City ekes it out on the road against a hot team in the Atlanta Falcons. There are two Monday Night Football games this week. We are going to focus on the better of the two, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars, who comes in surprisingly at 0-2 against the 2-0 Buffalo Bills. Jacksonville has stumbled out of the gate in their two games. On the road against the Miami Dolphins, they had the game won and fumbled it away. And then just kind of didn't show up to play against the Cleveland Browns in their home opener in Jacksonville. But, it doesn't get any easier now because they got to go up to Buffalo, and Buffalo's had some extra time to prepare for these Jaguars, having won on the Thursday night game last week against the Dolphins in Miami. Buffalo appears to have found their running game again this year after a slow start in week number 1. James Cook plays very well from that position. Him and, he's getting the screen passes and catching things out of the backfield. They still haven't located the tight ends in Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, but the new wide receivers are getting plenty of work, and the defense is what has surprised everyone in Buffalo thus far. They lost a lot of pieces, but the younger pieces that they do have are performing well. I think Jacksonville last week has got to be a wake-up call for them. They have played Buffalo very tough over the last several years, including a game that ended with a 9-6 victory a couple of years ago, and Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback in that game. I don't think Jacksonville's going to be able to hold back Buffalo's offense. We haven't seen much out of Jacksonville, and unfortunately, I think they start 0-3. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills at home on Monday Night Football. So there you have it, Week 3 Picks with David. Thanks for joining me again right here on YouTube and Facebook. I hope that it's a great weekend for everybody. Let's enjoy some of these really great games. We didn't showcase some of the other really good ones that are this week, including the possibility of Jordan Love coming back for the Green Bay Packers against Tennessee. And so just keep an eye on these games here this week. Going to be a lot of fun. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you next time when I make my pick for the next Thursday night game.